Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, my name is Jacob Harnisher, and I represent Pat and Peyton Reynolds. Thank you for undertaking the enormous responsibility of returning a verdict on this case. I ask you to closely consider the facts that have been presented to you over the course of this case, and remember the core issue of this trial. The fact remains that Peyton Reynolds handed his son off to the care of Dalton Fisher and Smithville School District, and the next time Peyton saw his son, he was in a coma. This is an absolute nightmare, not only to any parent, but to everyone with loved ones. The core issue of this trial that you, the jury, must rule on is whether Dalton Fisher was negligent in his care of Pat Reynolds. As the judge will explain to you, negligence is characterized by 4 components: duty, breach, proximate cause, and damages. In simplest terms, Dalton Fisher was tasked with the duty to care for Pat Reynolds. As Avery Harris explained in his testimony, he was not present to provide that care. His not being there led to Pat venturing out and getting hurt, falling into a coma. These simple facts alone constitute a ruling in favor of Pat and Peyton Reynolds. The defense has argued that they are entitled to an inference of no negligence under the safe harbor inference. If they obtain this inference, this would protect the defense from being subject to claims of negligence. The judge will remind you that in order to obtain this inference, the school district needed to adopt and comply with a reasonable supervision policy, provide adequate training on that policy, provide adequate notice to parents on how that policy will be followed out, comply with all reasonable parent requests, and that policy is followed. Based on the evidence and testimony, the defendants are not entitled to the safe harbor inference. Specifically, they failed in 2 major regards. Although they did implement a policy, they overrode said policy. The policy was not carried on the trip, as the school policy dictated a ratio of 1 chaperone for every 10 students. Yet the trip continued with 1 chaperone for every 20 students. In addition, Dalton Fisher did not receive enough training to be the lead chaperone on this trip. He was preparing to take on a lesser chaperone role to Dana Hughes, and the only instruction he received on how to be lead chaperone came from Jamison Manning, the man who broke school policy to allow this trip to continue and has never chaperoned this trip before. You also heard from Peyton Reynolds as he explained the financial repercussions from Pat's inability to complete the school trip. This man, a single father, now has to deal alone with the thought that if his son ever wakes up, he may be unable to attend college. You also heard from our expert, Bailey Thompson, whose expert opinion denounced not only the actions of Dalton Fisher during his time as a chaperone, but also the training he received and the amount of chaperones provided by the school. He also provided his expert opinion that the Smithville School District was negligent. Ladies and gentlemen, Dalton Fisher has proven on multiple occasions to be absent-minded. Pat has been on this trip before and it has gone off without a hitch. No one is claiming that Dalton Fisher attempted to hurt this child on purpose. But the fact of the matter remains that Dalton Fisher was in no way qualified to run this trip, and therefore someone must be held responsible for the injuries suffered to Pat. We, the plaintiff, bear the burden of proof as a preponderance of the evidence. This means that our allegation is more likely than not true, or that the defendant is 51% responsible for the injuries that Pat Reynolds suffered. The defense speaks of the career of a grown man. We come to you asking for justice for the life-threatening injuries suffered to a child. I ask you, the jury, to return a verdict in favor of the plaintiffs, Pat and Peyton, and award money damages. Do this for the sake of a father. Do this to ensure that your children's schools are held to a higher standard than this horrendous mismanagement. Thank you for your time.
Okay.